Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. My channel's name is Yuri Awakened, and I'm an INFJ. And if you don't know what an INFJ is, I suggest that you go to a very special website called 16personalities.com. And if you have been there already and you want to know some other great INFJ websites or websites to learn more about your personality archetype, or maybe you just find that particular personality archetype especially intriguing, I suggest that you take a look at the description of this video, which I'm going to be uploading afterwards, which will have all these different links to all these really great websites. This video is going to be about symbology. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the difference between the Triskelion and other things with the word tri in it. No, not really. Just the Triskele and Triquetra. So this is something that if you are a fan of symbology, you may or may not know about. This is something that if you are Catholic, you may or may not know about. It's also something that if you are Irish or Scottish, or, and this part is really interesting, if you are a pagan or a Hindu or a Buddhist, you might know about. And at the same time, you might learn from this video that you know about just the very, very top layer. So, with all that said, let's get our water. Yes? Water. Goodness. Let's get into it. So obviously this isn't going to be an edited video, it's happening live. And welcome to my home. This is my home, this is my house. And if you hear water, that's because there's water around. And this is just me taking a look at everything, making sure it looks nice. About how the one looks until it's, you know, a live stream, that is. Okay. So I have all of these, it's, you know, a live stream, that is. Okay, so I have all of these notes, which I'm going to put the links to in the description of this video after I'm done with this video. But I'm going to be pulling from some different really great quotes from all these things just so that I can have something to refer back to and that you can refer back to it too, because I like to encourage everyone to ask questions and come up with your own thoughts, with your own ideas. You know, be an individual. Don't just take my word for it. And in fact, if you hear me say something you totally disagree with, I really invite you to, you know, put something in the live chat or something in the comments below this video. You know, speak your mind. This is a safe space, so to speak. It's not really a space, it's online. You know what it is. All right, look. So this is a safe place. And if you disagree with something, I respect that. And I want to hear from you. And I want to hear what you think. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to some of my fans that keep coming back. I very much appreciate you guys, very, very much. And in my next video, I'll actually name some names. But for now, I'll mention Seven No Fear because you're also doing your own thing on your channel. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so out of the way, let's get to the Triquetra or the Triskelion or the triad or the triple lapa 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 lapa. So it's also known as a Trinity Knot. If you haven't seen one before, let me pull up a picture for you to see now. These are really beautiful, and you can find them in churches. You can find them in cathedrals, especially actually some of the most famous places on Earth where you can look at these things in colored glass windows. For instance, would be Notre Dame. So obviously some of those windows are gone now, but I want you to be able to see it. So I'm bringing up an image for you. So there's actually a couple different ways to face the Trinity Knot. The most famous way is this way. The top knot going up above the head for a very specific reason, one to the left and one to the right. You might notice this seems sort of synonymous with the Wheel of Life, and if so, then you are a very smart person. Now, this is a slightly older version of a Trinity Knot, or the Triquetra, or the Triskelion. Technically, this is not a Triskelion. Technically, this is a Triquetra, but it's also a Triskele. So what's the difference? So Triskele is actually the shortening of the word Triskelion, and it is used as a sort of slang for this thing that is not coming up for us. Triskele is actually slang for this. And the reason why it's slang is because originally it comes from the word Triskelion. The Triskelion looks like 3 individual spirals. In fact, think of the letter S. What if the letter S had a very deep spiral at the top and branched out to the left and had a very deep spiral there and then right, and a very deep spiral there? That's what the Triskelion is. So the Triskelion predates any occurrence of the Triquetra. The Triskelion also predates Christ. It also predates Christianity. However, it was still used and is still used today long since the death of Christ. Also, technically, the meaning is exactly the same. So, all right. In olden days, the Triskelion meant basically life. Before, during, after. Could also be used to mean Brigid, who was the sort of mother goddess of all Celtic lore, or Brigitte, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And it could serve as a showing of her 3 phases, the major phases of life. It could also be used for Hecate, who was seen as the major goddess of all pagan things, and especially Wiccans. But so let me explain. The first phase of life, you're a baby, so that would be the babe. Second phase, you're the adult, you're somewhere in the middle. Third phase, the crone. However, it can also be shown as the babe, the living, and passed on. However, that spiral would choose to show us continued consciousness. Each one of the spirals actually serve to explain the idea of a continued consciousness and the circle of life. So it's sort of like 3 phases of the circle of life, which is meant to show us that there's always life within life within life. So even during death, there's life. Even during the life, there's life, right? So how does that work? Well, imagine you have a baby. The baby only exists because you're at that middle stage of life. And that doesn't mean midlife crisis. It means you're the adult, right? So if you're looking at the baby, people who would use the Triskelion, which a lot of times were the old Celts, they wouldn't just see a baby. They would see a young person who had given birth to the baby. And if they were looking at a young person, they wouldn't just see a young person. They would see the crone, the knowledgeable, wise one that they would become from everything that was happening right now. Like you, right now in your life. You're learning something new, and maybe you already knew some of this stuff. But either way, at this moment, you're becoming that great wise sage that everyone's going to point to and say, tell us more about Battlestar Galactica, or whatever it happens to be in the future. You know, when you're a grandma or a grandpa, you'll be one of the coolest ones there, trust me. So the Triskele is different in what way? Notice the original Triskele is a Celtic knot. What makes it a Celtic knot? Well, A, I already know it's a Celtic knot, but then B, what makes it a knot is that it's continuous. You can't really tell where it starts. So technically, like if I was going to draw this, I would start right at the middle. I would start right at the middle. I would make that sort of half oval shape, almost like you were going to do the Christian fish. And then I would continue to the left, make a point. I would loop over, make a point, and then stop right where it's imgbin.com, Trinity Sunday, Triquetra, Christian Church, PNG, clip art area. Oh. But that's sort of like the very, very top of it. And so I want to get into what it means to Christians in the olden day, meaning while Christ was actually alive, Christians versus Christians now, and versus Christians in the 90s, and what all of that meant on the flip side to pagans or Wiccans or any other type of pagan group that you know of. So you may or may not know this, but people who follow the old Druidic ways or the old Celtic ways or the old Norse ways, Druidic ways or the old Celtic ways or the old Norse ways, none of those people are Wiccan. They're pagan. Wicca refers to a very specific religion, married and served to marry the parts of his life that he felt were the best. He was sent to old pagan Ireland, and he was supposed to basically bring everybody around to following the ways of the church. There was this especially stubborn area of farmers. They needed the farmers. So what were they going to do? They couldn't just break everybody's, break everyone's, break all their idolatries. They couldn't just destroy all of their things because they'd already seen that the ancient Celts didn't take well to that. So what they could do is they could send someone to sort of start to interface with them, become a friendly face, and hopefully influence them from there. Well, it's not the right word, but that particular township began to really take to him and want to follow him as a leader of sorts, but he really took to them, and he came to see the best parts of their life, which really involved constant gratitude, constant celebration of gratitude and joy for being alive all by itself, and then also nature. And really, they prized peace over everything else. But he felt like they were lacking some areas of construction almost. He felt like there was some areas of their life that just didn't have enough structure. And he felt like if he could maybe construct something from the ground up that they could build on and live off of, he could have the best form of life, and so could they. So he created Wicca. And if you want to find out more about that, you can watch my next video, which will be just talking about that. But it is seen today as one of the major signs of a Wiccan and has been used for many, 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 many years as the almost like the cross, but for Wiccans. But in actuality, the original cross, the truly old ancient cross, is what we would see today as the plus sign, because originally it meant all things being equal. But after what happened to Christ happened after he died, the length of the bottom line or the vertical line became elongated in order to show and glorify his, not departure, I guess, to remind us of his sacrifice and death and everything like that. So that's how that became. But originally, it was actually the plus sign. So what did the pagans use? What did the Wiccans use? Well, they used the Triquetra or the Triskele. And so it can actually be found multiple times on the Celtic cross as well. But there's many forms to the Celtic cross. And let's just talk about the Trinity Knot just for now. It's so easy to just jump off and look at all these other things because they're saying. But the Trinity Knot, or Triquetra, was used to symbolize and honor the mother, maiden, and crone of neo-pagan triple goddess. So the triple goddess is also known as Bridget, who is seen as the mother goddess of all Celts, or Kells, sorry, and can also be seen as Bridget, as we were talking about earlier, or Hecate, sorry, and also Brigid. So there's Bridget, Brigid, Brigitte. Technically, there's lots of different ways of saying or its name, but actually they're all correct, so can't go wrong. It signifies the 3 life cycles of a woman in relation to the phases of the moon. So this I have to kind of just explain here. It doesn't really mean in relation to the phases of the moon, but there are major phases of the moon that can be related to everybody's life, not just women's lives. It's not like saying, well, the moon can show the phases of women's lives and the sun can show the phases of men's lives. It's all interconnected. So listen. In more recent times, it has come to be recognized as a symbol for the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The famous design has recently seen somewhat of a revival, with Irish jewelry designers and silversmiths reintroducing this Celtic design into jewelry pieces. Today, it is commonly worn as a symbol of Irish ancestry and everlasting love. All true. In fact, some could say, and actually, I have a book that explains all these different well, so ancient Irish lineage. There were so many different ruling clans. There were so many. It's just so compact. There's just so much to know. But basically, you could say that it's showing a love or devotion to your Irish lineage if you wear it and you're Irish. Not so much for its original meaning, but for each of the last 3 major clans of the last chapter of the book. What book am I talking about? Well, there's an official book of ancient farmer. Yes, there were a lot of farmers, so there's also a lot of warring clans. And technically, I guess you could say that if you wear a Triskele or a Triquetra, each point would be for the last 3 major clans and trees, spines of the tree of Celtic ancestry. Kind of. To be honest, there was actually like something like 9 different clans that are credited with, bringing us the Ireland of today. But I guess you could say those 3 main faces could signify each of the last 3 clan groups. I wouldn't do it, but then again, I'm not Irish, and so therefore what I would do doesn't actually count. So now you know about the Triskele. Basically, if you do know any Catholics, talk to them about it. If you do know any Christians, talk to them about it. They'll both love to tell you. That's something that's more widely known. I'm not here to tell you about stuff that's widely known that you can find out anywhere. I'm here to tell you about stuff that you probably don't know, because that's a lot more fun for me. The history behind the Triskelion or Celtic symbol meaning. The ancient Celts had many symbols. Many of them revolved around a 3-fold theme. The Triskelion Celtic symbol meaning is a trinity of themes like mind, body, spirit, for example. In a nutshell, the Triskelion Celtic symbol meaning deals with competition and man's progress. The Greek term Triskelion literally means 3-legged, and appropriately, this sign looks very much like 3 legs running. What does that mean? If you've seen a symbol that looks almost like a triangle, but there's a leg running in one direction, a leg running in one direction, and one more this way, what you actually saw was the Triskelion or the Triskele. Actually, the oldest form of the Triskelion was, I believe, the 3 running legs. But we'll find out in just a second. In fact, the Manx coat of arms for the Isle of Man is essentially a Triskelion, but the spirals are legs. These legs look as if they are running. I encourage you to look it up. It's actually really nice. It's very pretty. And I'm getting this particular information from what's-your-sign.com/Triskelion- Celtic-symbol-meaning.html. And don't worry, I'm going to put it in the description below this video. But I don't want it to take too long, so don't worry, the video's almost over. For those of you who are hanging in there, it's almost over. I do suggest, if you're really interested in over the ancient Western world, however, it can also be found all over the ancient Eastern world. Today we're just looking at the Western world, but we'll look at the Eastern world next week. It can also mean spirit, mind, body. It can also mean Father, Son, Holy Ghost. It can also mean mother, father, child. If you think about it, if you think about anything that's truly major and important in your life, or the Triskele or the Triskelion, and you can see how you can divide a sort of pyramid of how each one of those things are interlocking and how each one needs the other in order to survive and create that pyramid. Is that interesting? Creator, destroyer, sustainer, creation, preservation, destruction, thought, feeling, emotion, mother, maiden, crone, other world, mortal world, celestial world. It's all pretty interesting. And there are so many different versions. I'm going to show you a Triskelion now. Woo. Let's see. Triskelion. This is a really beautiful symbol. It's something that you've probably seen if you've ever been to Ireland or you've ever been to Scotland and you've never known what you're looking at. This is what you were looking at. The Triskelion. The Triskelion predates the Triquetra. This is what the Triskelion looks like. Isn't it beautiful? And if you look closely enough, you can see there's actually a triangle kind of on its side, just in the middle where the open space is. And the reason why it's always in the shape is, actually, that's a trick question. It's not always in the shape. A lot of times, it can also be found upside down. If you've ever seen this, you're looking at a Triskelion or a Triskele or a Triquetra. Although technically a Triquetra is the original oval, oval, oval that you're used to seeing. That's technically the Triquetra. Actually, some people that it might have been used between Christians during the life of Christ to try and communicate with each other past the linguistic barrier, the same way that they did after his death with the Christian fish sign. So it's hypothesized that maybe one Christian meeting another Christian in the medieval world could have drawn this sign, or the Triskele or Triskelion, and then waited for the other person to respond in kind, to know that they were with someone who was safe. Mr. Splash Fuzz. Hey, Splash Fuzz, that is a very interesting name. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. But anyways, it's an incredibly interesting thing when you look at the world around us and you realize that you've been growing up with these signs and these symbols that have so much meaning and so much culture and so much background. If you'd like to learn about the Triskele or Triskelion in the ancient Eastern world, or you'd like to learn more about the Triskelion from a pagan or a Wiccan point of view, tune in next week because I'll be doing that video too. Just like the Triskelion, the truth has many sides. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate everyone coming and watching. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Splash Fuzz. I hope that you enjoyed it. Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Bye.